we fight,
we win.
when we vote,
We win.
when we knock doors,
We win.
when we make phone calls,
We win.
when we demand unions for all,
We win.
when we demand economic justice and racial justice, not choosing between one or the other. Sisters and brothers, family, we heard from our incredible leaders on this stage just yesterday afternoon that we agree as a union that no matter what our color or where we come from, that we all deserve an equal shot at a better life. Black, brown, white, Asian Pacific Islander, conservative or progressive, LGBTQI or straight, immigrant or native born. We want every family in every zip code to have a fair shot at a better future for ourselves, our families, and our communities. We want clean air and clean water. We want a world where every Black life matters. We want every immigrant, every new American, every new Canadian, every Puerto Rican to be safe and welcomed in our land. Family, all these differences are united to build the most powerful movement for change this nation has ever seen. And family, we know that it's more important than ever that we stick together in our union because our values are under attack. We know in our bones there is too much wealth and power concentrated in too few hands. Too many working people in the richest nation on earth can't find a stable job that pays enough to support a family, even as the economy is booming for those at the top. And while corporations enjoy record profits and CEO comp is off the charts, too many union members are having to fight tooth and nail to hold on to our retirement, our health care, and just to bargain a wage increase that keeps up with the cost of living. Meanwhile, certain politicians that we all know use race to divide us and to try and distract us. They scapegoat immigrants and people of color for all of our problems. Corporations and the politicians they buy have rigged the rules since the founding of this nation to favor the wealthy at a time when racial, gender, and economic inequality is at an all-time high. CEOs and corporate lobbyists use their influence to stop us from standing together to fight for a better life. They rig the rules to block working people from building real power through our unions. And they dismantle unions that have existed for decades. And not only that, their rigged rules never included all of us. Those rigged rules excluded domestic workers and farm workers and home care workers and child care workers. It even excluded public service government workers and healthcare workers for a very long time. And it's no accident that the exclusion was of mostly jobs done by women and primarily people with Black and brown skin. And sisters and brothers, we know that over time, corporations have gotten even more aggressive when it comes to blocking people from joining together in unions. Millions of jobs have been contracted, outsourced, franchised, or turned into a gig on an app so that companies can pretend they don't even employ people. This adds up to 45% of working people in our nation right now, right here, right today, being excluded from the legal right to organize. 45% of working Americans do not have the right to join the union. And let's face it, sisters and brothers, you can talk to organizing leaders right here in this room. Even when we have the legal right to organize that exists on paper, you and I know the rules are so important, it's nearly impossible for working people to join a union in today's economy. Some Americans get left out because their political and economic systems are supposed to work for all of us have been broken. We heard the leaders yesterday on this very stage give us example after example of those broken rules. And the truth is, we know that these systems have never worked for all of us. The rules were written by rich, white men, for rich, white men. And we know, family, that those rules are still working for rich white men and corporations in this nation. We know that this is still a nation for the wealthy and corporations. And the task before us as SEIU and movement leaders all across North America is to stand up and fight for each other and to build the power of a movement that cannot be ignored by rich white men and corporate power any longer. Right here in California and across North America, when working people, black, white, and brown, come together across our racial differences, across all of our differences, we know the power of a union when we join hands within our movement and across our movements. The powerful movement cannot be stopped. When we join together in our hands for people in a movement, look at what we're winning together. We heard last night 40,000 child care providers after 16 years. 40,000 family child care providers stuck together for 16 years, backed by all the members of SEIU right here in California, and they finally elected a state legislature and a governor who rewrote the rules and wrote them in so they get to join a union. I see you. I see you. And last night at the reception, we heard from an incredible UHW leader on behalf of 49 and 105 Kaiser leaders in 3 states who made a breakthrough agreement with Kaiser for 85,000 hospital and clinic workers. But hospital workers are on the move all across the country. Just last week in Long Island, New York, 1,200 hospital workers joined 1199 UHE SEIU. And look at what home care workers are winning. Yeah, home care workers. In Illinois, The home care workers, together with the rest of SEIU in Illinois, kicked out the governor that was trying to deny $30 million of back pay. And they won. They got their $30 million back in their pocket after the new governor went into office. In Massachusetts, home care workers just settled a breaking contract with $16.10 an hour for every home care worker in Massachusetts, and more paid time off. In Washington state, home care workers joined hands with the rest of SEIU in Washington to pioneer a groundbreaking long-term care trust act with AARP so that everybody who lives in Washington state has access to long-term care once and for all. And airport workers are joining the march. 6,000 Denver airport workers just won $15 in a union. They joined more than 144,000 airport workers in 17 airports who've been figuring out how to take those subcontracted jobs out of poverty and make them family-sustaining jobs, because they unite our political power, our bargaining power, and organizing power together to raise wages and job improvements. Up and down the East Coast, 75,000 janitors are mobilizing and organizing to negotiate contracts, and they're taking strike votes if necessary to win improvements for janitors up and down the East Coast. Here in California, 30,000 janitors won a groundbreaking new law that provides training to 200,000 janitors up and down this state on how to stop sexual harassment and assault at work. Ya basta! Ya basta! And security officers are organizing and bargaining and mobilizing all across this country, 50,000 strong security officers. 95,000 California state employees just ratified a groundbreaking agreement that raises wages, protects health care and retirement, and includes a special wage increase for people that work in places with skyrocketing housing costs. How about that? In Oregon, 4,500 higher education workers in Oregon were bold enough to serve a strike notice on the university, and that provoked a settlement of raising wages and maintaining family-sustaining jobs in Oregon. In Chicago public schools, our school support staff just dared to serve a strike notice with the teachers on the Chicago Board of Education because enough is enough. We need everybody to rise in this economy alongside classroom teachers. In Milwaukee, where the NBA was asking taxpayers for millions of dollars in subsidies to build a new arena, the community and workers came together and demanded that those tax dollars be used to create $15 an hour jobs and unions for everybody at the arena. And they won. $725 an hour jobs are now on their way to $15 next year. They're building their union. Many of them are going to go from getting paid poverty wages for being able to lead a decent life for the first time in 30 years. Yep. These kinds of local and state victories add up to national change. And I know there are many more victories in this union, from adjunct professors and grad students and fast food workers who, even without a collective bargaining agreement, are making changes in their stores. Nail salon workers and communication workers who are with us here today are all organizing and mobilizing to make improvements either with a contract or without, because we're not stopping until every worker in America earns enough to lead a decent life and one job. And sisters and brothers, those state and local victories pushed the House of Representatives to pass for the first time in 10 years an increase to the minimum wage of $15 an hour. And we know that we stand on the shoulders of people who came before us with a lot of guts and courage, and that our most recent movement was sparked by 200 fast food workers in New York City who had the guts to make a demand for 15 in a union and walk through a lot of people who were laughing at them and thinking it was ridiculous, but then ignited a movement that was joined by fast food workers all across this nation and around the world, airport workers, adjunct faculty, child care workers, home care workers. Every service and care worker in America became a part of the Fight for 15 and a union movement, because we're not stopping until 64 million underpaid and overworked workers are able to stand up for each other and build the power required to get corporations to the table. Now, Bridget Hughes told you yesterday how much money has been yielded from the Fight for 15 in how many workers' pockets. So this is a little test, family. How much money has the Fight for 15 and the movement of all our community and elected officials together yielded for working people? All right, $70 billion. That's right. For 24 million working Americans. I'm so proud of what we've won in our union, and I could feel your pride in the room yesterday afternoon. And when we stand together, fighting for 15 in a union, it helps us all do better. Lifting the floor to 15 pushes wages up for everybody else, because we're going to fight to eliminate poverty wage jobs in America. We're going to put a stop to corporations paying people so little that they are poor no matter how hard they work. We take on this fight because all of our work matters. All of our work has dignity, and all of our work deserves respect. And that's why this union is bound and determined to call on CEOs and our elected officials to respect and value every kind of job and every kind of worker. We know that many of our parents and grandparents helped build powerful unions that transformed low-wage, dangerous factory jobs into jobs where you could support a family. Those workers had the courage to strike. The most powerful companies in the US at the time, companies like GM and Ford, where they sat down and insisted that they deserved better. Now, SEIU family and sisters and brothers from across the Fight for 15 and a union movement, it's our turn to do the same. We can build the most powerful movement to make service and care jobs the most inclusive, most multiracial middle class that any nation in this world has ever seen. The power to make this change comes from the power of a union. And the benefits of that change aren't just for union members. They're for everybody. Everyone in our community benefits when more workers have the power to make jobs good in our communities. When those fast food workers, 115, they put their elbows on the table with me and said, now we can win the union for all fast food workers. Now we can end stop and frisk. Now we can tackle deportation. Now we can right every wrong in our lives. We know that our fight is not only a fight for justice on the job. Our fight is for justice on every front. Racial justice, environmental justice, healthcare justice, climate justice, immigrant justice. We are not going to choose between these fights. We're in all of them to win it. It's a fight for justice. Now I want to talk about how we get the power to create the world that we want. Because this is a make or break moment for working people. It's a make or break moment for our union and for this country. For those of us who already have a union where we work, we need to keep our union strong. And to stay strong, it's critical that we talk to every coworker in our neighborhood and in our work site. We need to welcome everybody into our union, to ask them to join us as members. We need to make sure that every coworker, every transfer in from another department knows that we need their help in order to win justice on the job and justice in our lives. I know you are out there doing this every day, but we also know that just keeping our union strong isn't enough. If we continue to live in a world where 10% of the working people in this country have the right to bargain a better life, our wages and benefits are always going to be at risk. We are never going to have the power to win justice on our jobs, or for our families, or for every family that we know deserves a better life. If we want to have a real check and balance against corporate power, then we have to help more people join us in the union. And that's why, sisters and brothers, we are declaring today that we're fighting for unions for all. Yes. Unions for all is our fight to push every elected representative and every candidate running for office up and down the ballot to challenge corporations to sit down with working people and to negotiate. It's a fight to update the laws to make sure that working people have the opportunity to join a union no matter what kind of job they do. It's a fight to help the world understand that the union we imagine builds on the past but takes us into the next generation, where we are not going to allow our fights for justice to be separated ever again. So in order to accomplish those things, we're making 4 demands for change. Number 1, the next president needs to bring employers, workers, and unions and government together at an industry-wide bargaining table to negotiate. Okay, we know what that means in this room. To negotiate wages, benefits, and working conditions. For example, sisters and brother, I'm just saying, the next president of the United States, after they get elected, could call McDonald's, Wendy's, and Burger King in, create a national bargaining table, and end poverty wage work and fast food. Number two, cities and states must be allowed to innovate ways for working people to have more power. Cities like Seattle and Washington, D.C., and states like New York and California and Illinois have raised their minimum wage to $15. They should also be free to strengthen workers' ability to have the power of a union to build a better life. Number three, everybody who works for the government, for a government contractor, or a private corporation that gets taxpayer dollars has to be paid $15 at a bare minimum and have the right to join a union once and for all. No more corporate tax subsidies unless our tax dollars create good union jobs that build shared prosperity. We have a guest here from the Communication Workers of America that I met at registration yesterday. Her job is financed completely by federal tax dollars because she works at a call center in Mississippi. Imagine if every federal tax dollar that's providing employment is required for her to be able to bargain a better life and have a $15 minimum wage. And number four, every proposal that candidates are making in this election needs to include a way for workers to join unions. We want health care for all? Then 9 million healthcare workers who don't have a union ought to have the right to join a union and bargain a better life. We support the Green New Deal. When the Green New Deal passes, millions of clean energy jobs have to be good union jobs so those workers have a better life. When we win college for all, the 2 million workers on higher education campuses in this nation have to have the right to join a union. So, let's talk about how we're going to make these changes come to pass. Can we make this happen, SEIU, and Fight for 15? So we need to do the same thing that we do to win good contracts in order to win unions for all. We've celebrated victories here, and we know those victories came with a lot of one-on-one conversations, a lot of petitions getting signed, a lot of organizing in our workplaces and in our neighborhoods in order to bargain a better life. And now, we are answering the call as SEIU and the Fight for 15 to demand it not just for who we represent, but for the 64 million workers who deserve a shot at a better life. So we're going to go back and talk to elected officials and community leaders about our vision. And we're going to get started right here at this summit when we meet with the candidates who are running for president. As a movement of 2 million SEIU members and the millions more in the Fight for 15 and a union, we are calling on every candidate to support our 4 changes for unions for all and to insist that we cannot win economic justice unless we win racial justice. And if you can't do those 2 things, you can't count on our support. And family, we know let's face it, they need our support. It's working people who knock on doors every weekend. It's working people who make endless phone calls every GOTV. It's working people who reach into our pockets and contribute to our political action fund. It's not candidates who win elections, it's working people who do. The good news already in this presidential campaign is that we're seeing more detailed and ambitious plans to win unions for all, more than any election in recent memory. We're seeing presidential candidates release plans that include sectoral bargaining, a national $15 minimum wage, lifting up home care workers, and calling out corporations like McDonald's that have been exploiting working people. That's pretty big. That's pretty bold, but we know they can go bigger and bolder for working people. All those things they've been doing for corporations the last 40 years, now it's our turn to have the power to make change. The power is in our hands. We can choose a president that's going to represent the best of every kind of working American. Somebody's going to stop the finger pointing and the scapegoating and help us join together across our racial differences. Somebody who's ready to fight for all of us. That's what we're looking for in the next presidential candidate in this week and in the months to come. And when the time is right, SEIU leaders will gather to make an endorsement. But we're going to keep pushing our demands no matter what. And we're going to fight together, and we will win. But this group knows better than everybody that our job doesn't stop on Election Day. We got to hold those elected officials accountable. We got to welcome everybody into our union, in our work sites, and in our neighborhoods. We got to make sure that we keep reaching out to workers who are knocking on the door to join a union. Because sisters, brothers, family, we show the world what is possible when all of us move forward together. We show the world what a democracy looks like when everybody's in. We show the world what a beautiful multiracial union looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. Show me what a multiracial union looks like. Tell me what a democracy looks like. Show me what a union looks like. All right, sisters and brothers, let's get going.